Hi guys! So today's video will be a Top 5 Wednesday video. The theme for this week are your top 5 favorite literary fathers. Top 5 Wednesday is hosted by Sam from Thoughts on Tomes and was created by Lainey from Ginger Reads Lainey. Their channels as well as the Goodreads link for more info will be linked down below. As I said, it's top 5 fathers, and so as usual I have my top 5 put aside. Mind the background, or don't mind the background rather. I'm packing because I'm going away this weekend, so yeah. As usual, these are in no particular order. I just grabbed from the top of the pile. So first up is a character from Harry Potter. I did not go with James Potter. I did not go with Sirius Black. I went with Remus Lupin. Mainly because out of all the father figures that Harry has in his life, Remus was always my favorite from the moment he was introduced. That is why I used Prisoner of Azkaban, even though I know he doesn't become a father until, I want to say, it was Deathly Hallows, I believe. I haven't read these in a while. I really need to. It's almost time for my reread every July 31st, so, and then I'll have an 8th thing to continue on with. Anyway, I chose Remus Lupin. I feel like Remus was such a good father figure for Harry. I feel like Remus was always a really good example of what a father should have been and could have been for Harry. I feel like Sirius is maybe too immature at times, but I feel like Remus, especially given his circumstances, like with him, you know, being a werewolf and such, really had his crap together. Like, he really had his life figured out for the most part. And I don't know, I feel like that translated really well into his co-parenting of Harry. So, I don't know, I loved Remus, and I loved Remus when he became, you know, like a biological father. And I loved Remus. Remus was like one of my favorite characters, if not my favorite character from Harry Potter. And he kind of got the bum end of the deal. But yeah, moving on. The next father that I chose is actually Mo from Inkheart. And I have the really crusty looking movie cover and I hate it, and I really want the original cover, but it's really hard to find. So one of these days I'm gonna buckle down and order it. But yeah, Mo from Inkheart. Mo put Meggie above everything in his life, and I mean, he really sheltered Meggie for a really long time with, I feel like, a justifiable reason. I mean, maybe he could have like explain to her, you know, why, because she was never allowed to read out loud from books, and there's a reason why. You have to read Inkheart to find out, but I feel like he maybe could have actually told her why, and that maybe would have, you know, like made things a little easier for her. But yeah, I loved Mo, I loved Meggie, I loved their father-daughter dynamic. He was a really good dad to her, and like he basically raised her on his own because her mother was primarily absent, and just, yeah, I loved Mo. Mo was one of my top 5 picks. The next father figure that I chose is Matthew from Anne of Green Gables. Anne wouldn't have had a fighting chance in Avonlea if it weren't for Matthew, because Matthew is the one who initially wanted to keep Anne. Anne is an orphan that Matthew and his sister adopted, and they actually adopted somebody with the intent of adopting a son, and instead they received Anne, and Matthew is the first one that fell in love with Anne. He's the first one that really took on to her, and kind of, I feel like without Matthew, Marilla would have just sent Anne back, because Anne was not what Marilla had in mind at first. So I feel like Matthew is the entire reason we even have an Anne of Green Gables. But yeah, I loved Matthew. I loved reading about him. He was so sweet. He kind of reminded me of my grandpa, so I get kind of emotional when I think about Matthew. But yeah, Matthew. The next father that I have chosen is actually Carson Drew from the Nancy Drew series, mostly because Nancy puts Carson through a lot of crap, and he just puts up with it and lets her continue on with her detective ways, and he's just a really cool dad, and he helps her out when he needs to, because I think he was a lawyer. I want to say her dad was a lawyer. He was a lawyer, I just looked it up. But yeah, he was always just bailing her out when she needed it, and he was always there for her when she needed him, and he was super cool. I always when I was growing up reading Nancy Drew books, it was like, oh man, I wish I could be like a detective, but mom and dad would never let me do that, and he did. He let her do it. I mean, granted, Nancy's like, I think 18 or 17, something like that, because I know she's old enough to drive. I remember that. I'm pretty sure she was like 18, because I swear to God there was like a college book or something. I don't know. Carson Drew. The last one that I have chosen is from the Hunger Games, and it's actually Haymitch Abernathy. Haymitch, while a known alcoholic and a constant drunk, was more of a parent to Katniss and Peeta than Katniss and Peeta's own parents. I've mentioned before my issues with Katniss's mother, and if you've read the Hunger Games, you know that her father's not around. He did unfortunately pass away prior to the start of the series. And then with Peeta's parents, Peeta's mom is an abusive jerk, and Peeta's dad, while he seemed really nice, lets the mom beat on his kid. So I mean, I don't know, I always kind of took issue with Peeta's dad. Just because you're nice doesn't mean you're a good parent. Anyway, I chose Haymitch. Like I said, Haymitch was more of a parent than their own parents. He really takes Katniss and Peeta under his wings, and like I said, he's a known alcoholic, and while that is not the best quality and should not be a quality in a parent, he loved Katniss and Peeta. He'd do anything for them. He does do anything for them. He takes care of Katniss in his own way when her own mother abandons her. And he loved Peeta to death, so much in fact that he was so depressed when Peeta was taken by the Capitol. And I feel like Haymitch just doesn't get enough credit where credit is due. Haymitch was a good dad to them. I'd like to say that I know I have previously made a video where I talk about my favorite father from literature, and I did say Charlie from Twilight, and then upon further reflection, like, Charlie was like my instant answer, and then I thought about it more and I was like, no, not Charlie, but it's too late, and that video's already up and it's already done, and this is what you're stuck with now, me backtracking and retracting the things I've said before. So that was this week's Top 5 Wednesday. If you like this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe down below. Let's be friends. I love having friends, and I will see you in the next video. Bye! Real quick, I do have an honorary mention, mostly because I thought of him right after I finished filming, and that's Chase from the Sword of Truth series. Chase had a bunch of kids, and he actually ends up adopting this little girl, and I think her name was Rachel. But he was such a cool dad. He was so sweet to Rachel, and he really took care of her when she had no parents. And then he was like, you know what? I've got a bunch of kids. You want some brothers and sisters? And it was really sweet, and I forgot to mention Chase. So he is an honorary mention. Okay, for real now though, bye.